Now be honest with yourself, gold, Bitcoin, or cash. When everything falls apart, which one actually saves you? I can already guess what you're thinking. Nihat, I've seen this video before. One YouTube channel told me Bitcoin is the future. Another told me gold is eternal, and my uncle says cash is king. To be fair, your uncle isn't wrong, but he isn't completely right either. And that's exactly why we need to have this conversation today. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. In a real crisis, not a stock market dip, not a disappointing earnings report, but a genuine crisis, most people discover which of these actually works only when it's already too late. And by too late, I mean they're sitting at their kitchen table trying to figure out how their savings disappeared. I don't want that to happen to you. Over the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to examine gold, Bitcoin, and cash, not as theories, not as internet debates, but as real tools that I've watched perform under real pressure. We'll discuss what each one actually does during a crisis. We'll also discuss what each one doesn't do, which is just as important. We'll talk about how to think about them together rather than separately. And I'll share a period in my own life when I didn't understand any of this and what it cost me. At the end of this video, I'm also going to ask you a question that I genuinely want you to answer, because your answer will reveal more about your financial instincts and the way you think about money than almost any financial quiz ever could. Stay with me. Let's begin. Part 1. Setting the stage. What is a crisis really? Before we talk about gold, Bitcoin, or cash, we need to agree on one thing. What does the word crisis actually mean? Because this word gets used so casually that it has almost lost its weight. A 10% market correction is not a crisis. Your favorite stock falling is not a crisis. A recession headline on the evening news does not automatically mean a crisis. A real financial crisis, the kind that separates those who prepared from those who didn't, looks more like one of these situations. Currency collapse. The money sitting in your bank account loses purchasing power so quickly that by the time you spend it, it buys significantly less than it did 6 months earlier. This has happened. It is happening right now in several countries. It is not science fiction. A banking freeze, you walk into a bank or go to an ATM to withdraw your money, and the system politely tells you, not today. Cyprus in 2013, Greece in 2015. People could withdraw only around 60 euros per day from their own accounts. 60 euros per day. Hyperinflation, not normal inflation, hyperinflation. A situation where prices don't rise annually, they rise weekly, sometimes daily. Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Argentina, multiple times. Real countries, real people, real savings wiped out. Then there are the slower crises, job loss, medical emergencies, regional economic downturns, the kind where nothing dramatic happens overnight, but over 18 months, your financial situation quietly deteriorates until one morning you look at your account and think, how did we get here? I've seen all of these up close, not always personally, but professionally, close enough to feel their impact. Now, with that picture in mind, let's talk about what gold, Bitcoin, and cash actually do in these situations, and perhaps more importantly, what they don't do. Part 2. Gold, the oldest argument in the room. Let's start with gold, because gold is the grandfather of this entire conversation. Gold doesn't need an introduction. For thousands of years, gold has been recognized as a valuable asset. Empires collapsed, currencies disappeared, entire civilizations vanished from history, and yet gold continued to hold value. That's not marketing, that's history. So what does gold do well? At its core, gold is a store of value against currency debasement. When governments print money, and particularly during crises, they often do, the purchasing power of that currency tends to fall. Gold tends to rise, not perfectly, not immediately. But historically, that's been the pattern. If you owned gold during the 2008 financial crisis, you watched it rise from roughly $800 per ounce to more than $1,900 by 2011. While real estate collapsed and stock portfolios were cut in half, gold was moving higher. Gold is also portable wealth that exists outside the banking system. Physical gold, coins, and bars is something you hold yourself. No bank must approve your access. No government can freeze it remotely. In a way that a bank balance never truly can be, it is yours. And gold possesses something Bitcoin will never have, a 5,000-year track record. I say that not for dramatic effect, but because it's true. When I speak with someone who is 70 years old and has lived through multiple economic shocks, gold makes immediate sense to them. because they've seen it work. Now let's talk about where gold becomes more complicated. And I want to be completely honest, gold is not highly liquid during an emergency. If you need money tomorrow, physical gold creates friction. You need a buyer, you need a price, you need a transaction. That takes time. And during a fast-moving crisis, time is expensive. Gold also produces no income. It simply sits there, very confidently, very shiny, but completely silent. No dividends, no interest. Gold is primarily a preservation tool, not a growth tool. And here's something that surprises many people. During short-term market panics, gold sometimes falls too. Because when fear peaks, people sell everything to raise cash, gold included. It usually recovers. But that initial decline catches many investors off guard. So gold is excellent for preserving wealth over long periods, excellent for protecting against currency collapse, less effective for short-term liquidity, not particularly effective for growth. Think of gold as your financial bunker, not where you live every day, but a very comforting place to have when things outside become serious. Now here's a question I want you to think about. If every currency in the world lost half its value tomorrow, and I mean every currency, what would you rather hold, paper money or gold? Keep that question in mind, we'll come back to it. Part 3, Bitcoin, the new challenger. Now let's talk about Bitcoin. I can already feel half of you leaning forward and the other half crossing your arms. And honestly, I love that, because that tension is exactly what makes this conversation worthwhile. Let me tell you where I stood on Bitcoin about 8 years ago. I was skeptical, not dismissive. I've never believed in dismissing things you don't understand. That's not analysis, that's laziness. But I was skeptical. I didn't see Bitcoin as a store of value. I saw it as speculation, an exciting, noisy, uncertain speculation. Then I started paying attention, not just to the price, but to the behavior, the use cases, the adoption, the real-world utility. And over time, I updated my opinion. Because that's what you do when new information arrives, you update. So what does Bitcoin do well that gold cannot? Bitcoin is digitally portable in a way that almost nothing else is. If you need to move significant wealth across a border, across a country, or across any physical barrier, Bitcoin can do that in minutes. Gold cannot, cash cannot. In certain crises, that matters enormously. For refugees, for people escaping economic collapse, for those living under capital controls, Bitcoin has literally served as a lifeline. Bitcoin also has a fixed supply, 21 million coins, that's it, forever. No government can decide at 3 in the morning to create more Bitcoin because it needs additional funding. That scarcity is central to Bitcoin's value proposition. And as more people understand that, the proposition becomes stronger. Bitcoin is also increasingly viewed by institutional investors as a macroeconomic hedge, a form of digital gold, not just by retail traders, pension funds, endowments, public companies. That's a meaningful shift. Now let's talk honestly about the risks. Volatility, I cannot emphasize this enough. Bitcoin can fall 50% in a matter of weeks. I've seen it happen repeatedly. If your emergency fund is sitting in Bitcoin and you suddenly need that money 6 months later, there is a very real chance it could be worth substantially less. This is not theoretical. Real people have experienced exactly this. Bitcoin also requires technology. A phone, internet access, private keys, password management. For much of the world, those requirements are genuine barriers. And in certain infrastructure crises, power outages, internet outages, access to Bitcoin can become difficult or impossible. And Bitcoin is still young, very young. Gold has thousands of years of history. Bitcoin has only a fraction of that. I believe in Bitcoin's future, but I believe in it with humility. There is still much we don't know. One thing I often tell people about Bitcoin makes them laugh, and then think, Bitcoin is like an exceptionally talented 25-year-old, someone who has already achieved remarkable things and possesses enormous potential, but who has also had some truly catastrophic weeks that left everyone worried. You believe in them long-term, but you don't hand them your entire life savings. I say that with full respect to Bitcoin because I own some myself. Just go into it with your eyes open. Bitcoin is excellent for digital portability, excellent for protecting against unlimited money printing through fixed supply, not suitable as your only crisis reserve, and not accessible without technology. Part 4. Cash, the most underrated asset. Now let's talk about cash, because this is where many financial discussions completely lose the plot. The investment world often treats cash like something embarrassing. as though holding cash requires an apology. "I'm just sitting in cash right now," usually said with the same tone someone uses to admit they haven't been to the gym in months. Stop doing that. Cash, particularly short-term cash held in strong currencies, plays a role that neither gold nor Bitcoin can fully replace. Consider 2008, Lehman Brothers collapses, markets are crashing, real estate is collapsing, and during the early weeks of that crisis, gold fell too. Bitcoin didn't exist. Everything was being sold for one reason. People needed cash. Rent is paid in cash. Groceries are bought with cash. Emergencies are solved with cash. Cash is the only asset that can be spent immediately without conversion, negotiation, or transaction delays. And here's what many people misunderstand. During the early phase of a major economic shock, before inflation accelerates and before currency debasement becomes obvious, cash is often king. The problem is that this advantage has an expiration date. If a currency crisis continues for months and you're still holding large amounts of cash, purchasing power begins to disappear. That's why cash is both a protection tool and a timing tool. The practical rule I use is simple. Maintain 3 to 6 months of living expenses in accessible cash, always, no exceptions. This isn't an investment, it's infrastructure. Like a spare tire, you don't drive on it every day, but you're incredibly grateful it's there when you need it. Part 5. The real answer, a system, not a winner. My friends, here's the truth. The question, which one protects you in a crisis, is actually the wrong question. I know that's not what most people want to hear. Most people want a winner. Gold, Bitcoin, cash, pick one. But that's dangerous thinking, because different crises require different tools. And you never know which crisis is coming. Currency collapse, gold and Bitcoin perform well. Cash loses purchasing power. Banking freeze, physical gold and self-custodied Bitcoin shine. Bank deposits become problematic. Liquidity emergency, cash wins, no contest. Long-term economic stagnation, gold and Bitcoin generally outperform cash over time. Do you see the issue? The answer isn't gold, the answer isn't Bitcoin, the answer isn't cash. The answer is building a system that doesn't require you to predict the future. My framework is simple. Foundation layer, cash 3 to 6 months of expenses, immediately accessible. Stability layer, gold, approximately 10 to 15% of investable assets, held for preservation, not speculation. Growth and optionality layer, Bitcoin, approximately 5 to 10% of investable assets, enough to matter, not enough to destroy you if you're wrong. Everything else, productive assets, businesses, real estate, quality stocks, assets that generate cash flow. Because true financial protection isn't just surviving a crisis, it's continuing to build through one. Part 6. From zero to a system. In my late 20s, I had very little financial protection. I had income, decent income, but almost no savings, no gold, no meaningful safety net. Then my industry experienced an economic slowdown, not a global crisis, a regional and sector-specific one, and I learned something very quickly. Income and financial resilience are not the same thing. Income is a faucet. Financial resilience is a reservoir. When the faucet slows down, you survive on the reservoir. I didn't have one. Over the next 18 months, I learned under real pressure what actually worked. I read, I studied, I spoke to people who had navigated worse situations. I made mistakes, I made good decisions, and gradually I built the system I just described. Not overnight, not in a month, slowly, consistently, with real money and real decisions. And the lesson I want you to take from that story is simple. You do not need to be wealthy to begin. You need to be intentional. 3 months of expenses in cash is not a rich person's goal. It's a serious person's goal. Allocating a portion of your investments to gold is not a wealthy person's strategy. It's a thoughtful person's strategy. The system grows as you grow. The only version of this story that ends badly is the version where you keep waiting until you feel ready, because crises do not check whether you're ready. Here's the conclusion. Friends, let's wrap this up a bit. Gold, Bitcoin, or cash. Gold protects you against time, against the slow erosion of a currency's value over years and decades. It is patient, it is ancient, and it always works. Bitcoin protects you against borders and fixed supply scarcity. It is young, volatile, and carries potential along with risks. It has a place in a portfolio built with open eyes. Cash protects you against urgency, against the moment when you need money right now, not 3 days later when a transaction settles. It is not flashy, it is indispensable. None of these is the answer on its own. The three together being the right proportions and tailored to your specific situation. Form a bond, the question I promised at the beginning. If a serious economic crisis were to emerge tomorrow, yes, tomorrow, and you were forced to keep only one of these three things and completely give up the other two, gold, Bitcoin, or cash, which one would you keep? Think carefully. I want to know, not because there is a correct answer, but because your instinctive answer says something important about how you currently think about money and protection, and understanding your instincts is the first step toward improving them. Write it in the comments, gold, Bitcoin, or cash. And if you want, tell me why, because the real conversations begin with the question, why? And one more thing, if there is someone in your life who keeps all their savings in only one of these three things with no system, plan, or framework whatsoever, please share this video with them. Not because I need the views, but because the right information arriving at the right time is one of the most valuable things one person can give another. Take care of yourselves and protect your money too. See you in the next video.